Okay. Hi, everyone. This is the Friends May meeting. I see we're still letting some people in, but I think we're going to go ahead and get started to be conscious of
Yeah.
everybody's time. So I do see some new faces, so I'm going to just take 2 minutes to give the little Friends background spiel. I don't want to steal too much time. And then a couple announcements before I turn it over to our guest tonight. So first of all, my name is Stacy Macris. I'm one of the Friends co-presidents this year, along with Carrie Chappie, who is also on this Zoom. We, as a Friends group, put on a content-specific meeting every month during the school year. So this is just the topic for our May meeting. But to find the schedule of our topics, you can find that on our website, which is friendsofdifferentlearners.com. We only have one more meeting this school year. So that's the first Thursday night of June. And that's our planning meeting for the next year. So please do come to that though. If you have any ideas on topics that you would like to see for the next year, or maybe you know somebody in the community that would be an outstanding speaker for us, or maybe you are a speaker that might have a topic of interest. If you cannot make that meeting, but have an idea, you can shoot Carrie or myself an email and I'll put our information in the chat. Friends of Different Learners is a independent organization that works closely with Birmingham Public Schools, teachers, administration, and community to maximize learning for all students within our district. If you would like to become a member and support us, we would greatly appreciate that. So that information can be found on our website. Again, that's friendsofdifferentlearners.com. And I think we are in the process of sort of revamping, but I think it's currently, if you're on the front page of the website and scroll down just a little bit, there should be a support us button. Annual membership it goes with a requested $10 donation, and we put that towards amazing programs. So we'd really appreciate your support. So let's see, any other announcements we are looking for some people that would like to step up a little bit more with our group and get a bit more involved for next school year. So if you think you might have even a little bit more time to give, please reach out to Carrie or myself and we can talk to you about what we might have open. We would love to have some people. I know I see a bunch of our building reps on this call right now too. So if you're one of those building reps and you think you might have a little bit more time, reach out to one of us. We'd love to, we have a bunch of things and we'd love to have a little bit more people supporting. So with that, I'd like to introduce our special guest for tonight. Miss April Imperio is our new BPS Assistant Superintendent of Student Learning and Inclusion. Miss Imperio joined us from the Detroit Public Schools Community District, where she was serving as Executive Director of the K-12 Literacy, Early Learning, and Montessori since 2017. Prior to her time in DPS, she served in several leadership roles in Florida, including as a Director of Curriculum and Instruction in Duval County, a literacy coordinator and school improvement specialist with the Florida Department of Education, and an academic coach, MTSS coordinator in Flagler County School District. Her prior teaching experiences were in Florida and Maryland. Ms. Imperial holds a master's in educational leadership from Nova Southeastern University and a bachelor's in early childhood and elementary education from Frostburg State University. And April, before I turn it over to you, I just wanted to add that the Friends group meets with administration at least monthly, and usually several touch points in between those meetings, depending on what is going on. And I just want everyone to know, because April is new to us, that she has really made these meetings with our group a priority. But really beyond that, she actually listens to our concerns and leans on us for a viewpoint on things that she is doing as well. So we have really appreciated the start to our relationship this year, April. And then thank you again for being with us tonight. We had you to doing your top 5 priorities. I think you were supposed to be scheduled earlier this year and we had to move things around. So thanks for being so flexible on that.
Of
Looking
course.
forward to hearing what you're working on now that you are been in the role for the school year and what's going on going forward.
Thank you so much, Stacy. That was such a kind introduction. And I have to tell you, it has been a pleasure working with the Friends group and digging in on how we can best serve our students with disabilities, but also all students in the district. I think that is something that is unique about your group specifically, is while you do have really do care about what impact we can have for each and every child in the district. And so I thank you for the warm welcome. Our meetings have been easy to be collaborative because they're so full of mutual respect and deep willingness to listen on both sides, to learn from one another, and really to acknowledge. I feel like when you see your feedback and guidance reflected in the work, you're like, hey, this is what we talked about. And I feel that excitement and enthusiasm. And so I just deeply appreciate the group and the team, and what a deep pleasure it has been getting to know everyone. So you talked a lot about my academic and professional background. And I thank you for that. I think I've been in Michigan now for about 6 years, and I think sometimes people think my career started there, but it didn't. It started about 24 years ago in Maryland, and then moved to Florida for several years, about 15, 16, maybe even 18. And then I did spend 5 years proudly serving in Detroit Public Schools Community District. Actually invited. I was serving in Duval County, Florida, and I was invited to be a part of a small team that when Detroit Public Schools Community District regained local control from emergency management and had an elected board and were able to elect their own superintendent, they selected the superintendent of Duval County, Florida, Dr. Vitti, and I was part of a small group that was asked to come and do the work of helping to rebuild that school system. And to say that work was magical and incredible is an understatement. I'm so proud of what we were able to accomplish, even with the interruption of COVID. And when I moved here, I wasn't sure I was staying in Michigan. I really wanted to do some good work and then see what happened. But my family and I fell in love with Michigan. And now so I moved here all by myself. I am a mom of 3 daughters. But my mom and my daughter and my son-in-law and my grandson and my youngest daughter have all moved here now. My youngest daughter is a senior at Michigan State. And so when we realized Michigan was going to be our home, I started looking for, like, where is my home? Where do I get to put in some roots and spend some time in a community that I feel that I could really serve well, but also have some longevity in. Sorry, I warned you about the dog. I'm going to try to shut the door. And so I was really lucky I watched the local superintendent interviews, and I love Birmingham. We always come to Booth Park in the movie theater. I live in Berkeley, so just a little ways away. And when I saw Dr. Roberson, I was like, I would really enjoy working for a female superintendent. Like that would be a new role for me. And so I applied knowing almost nobody. And I had to go through 3 interviews and a one-on-one. And they were like 10, 15 person interviews. Carrie, I think were you in on my interviews? Yeah, on at least one of them.
Yeah, you came in through a rainstorm and
Yes.
some other issue, and you came in cool, collected, and you're amazing. You're amazing. I mean, just everything about you was just what we were asking for. I know with the literacy side of, so you spoke my language, and I'm like, she gets it. I love it.
Thank you.
You did an amazing job.
And I truly believe and felt blessed to be offered the role. And the last 8 months have been such a joyful ride. It's not without challenges, and But no school system ever has been or ever will be, but it has been wonderful getting to know the outstanding principals, incredible teachers. Everybody in every school knows almost every student by name. It's just been magical. I mentioned earlier that I have 3 daughters, and my older 2 daughters are both diagnosed with dyslexia. My oldest daughter, who has a master's degree in biomedical physics, graduated from high school reading at a 3rd grade reading level. School was very, very hard for her. My middle daughter is an accountant. She has her bachelor's degree in accounting. Her dyslexia was not as severe because she had much earlier intervention, I think because I knew what to look for at that point. And my youngest daughter actually has a 504, which has pretty much helped her get her way through school. Again, much earlier intervention. I also have 5 grandchildren. They range in age from 7 to 1. 2 boys and 3 girls, and they are magical little human beings. And my grandson that lives here with me has praxia, which is a motor processing. He doesn't live with me, he lives next door to me with his parents. I like to think he lives with me, which is a motor processing speech delay. And so he is at Berkeley Building Blocks for pre-K. And he also goes for speech therapy twice a week at the Kaufman Center. And so, speaking to this group, I just have to name, I think part of why it's been so easy for us to build a connection is because I am so deeply connected to the special education world and to children with unique needs, and also deeply understand how successful children with unique needs can be when they get the right services and the right interventions at the right time. And so I just wanted to make sure that this group knew that I consider it my job to educate every single child in the district. And I say all the time that students with disabilities can and should, especially if they are on regular standards and regular assessment, be able to accomplish and excel and exceed the performance of their like peers. I have 2 of them wandering, maybe 3 soon. My 3rd is almost ready to graduate from college. So just wanted to share that with you before I dug into what we're doing as a district. So I have a little bit of an agenda. We're going to do a little review of like the 2020, 21, 22 goals and the progress we're making on those goals. We set a couple of goals early on in the year for ourselves. I'm going to talk about some core academic updates. I have it in the wrong order. It's actually going to be math and then literacy. I want to talk about where we're going with what we've done and where we're going with MTSS. I would love to touch on career readiness and CTE and our plans for that. And then I also want to talk about our district's Better Together initiative. And so I'll pause after each section to just kind of take questions about that section before we move into the next section. So as you know, before I moved into the role of assistant superintendent, you may know the district, and prior to Dr. Roberson becoming superintendent, the district had initiated an equity audit. And as Dr. Roberson moved into superintendent and I moved into assistant superintendent, the results of that equity audit were provided to us. And when we reviewed the equity audit, we set 5 goals for the student learning and 4 goals really for the student learning and inclusion team. One was to plan. One thing that we noticed very early on was an assessment culture that was a little distrusting of the assessment data. There was just a long history of not sure if the data gave the right information, not positive that the data could be trusted. There weren't systems necessarily in place to really analyze the data down to the student level to help monitor how our students are doing. So one of the, and the equity audit showed that we had some things to do to help some of our students grow in a way that they were performing like their similar peers. And we look at students, a lot of times when we speak about an equity audit, it sounds like we're only talking about race, but we actually look at how students with disabilities are performing. We look at how students who are English language learners are performing. We look at how students that are economically disadvantaged are performing. And we look at students by race and ethnicity and how they're performing. There's also sometimes a misconception that we only look at low performing students, but actually in our equity audit, we looked at our advanced students to see, are they maintaining that high level of performance? And are they also growing the way that they should be growing, and not falling, not losing ground along the way? Sometimes when you enter the fourth grade and you're at a fifth grade level, you might leave fourth grade still at a fifth grade level and not have grown that extra year based on the differentiation you received. And the equity audit told us a lot about how all of our groups were performing. And we had disparities amongst some of our populations, but we also had, students that a more significant number of students is achieving a higher GPA, but not reaching college and career readiness on the SAT, which told us that, we have some work to do to serve our advanced students and to serve our students that are performing a little below grade level. And so we decided that we would focus on equity-minded assessment. And what that means is we were going to plan, facilitate a 3-part Assess for Success series. And it was really talking about equitable, comprehensive, and balanced assessment system. And by equitable, what we mean is that we're looking at every child. So a lot of times you look at a whole group of data and smaller groups can fall through the cracks. And so what it means is we're looking at every child and we're thinking about, how is this child performing down to the teacher level? And by comprehensive, it means, do we have all the right parts of an assessment system that we need to be successful? And by balanced, it's, do we have the right assessments in the right place? Do we have too many? Do we have too few? And so we facilitated 2 parts of that series already. And it's been really exciting. The second part of that series got canceled because of a snow day, but we were able to turn it into a virtual session for teachers and for principals. And many of our educators and our principals really dug into their middle of the year data, which allowed them to look at how much the kids are growing throughout the year. And they were able to see where they were finding success and where they weren't finding success. And what's great about a mid-year assessment is you have time to course correct before the end of the year. So Cindy and I actually led a session where we looked at every single student receiving reading intervention in grades K-5. And we looked at how much has that intervention had an impact on the student's overall reading level this year as a part of this series. So we're well on our way. Part 3 is on May 11th. And in order to help our schools and our teachers gain independence with this assessment literacy and the assessment analysis, we've turned it into a PLC type event where teachers are going to be actually facilitating the session in groups of 4 or 5, and they are going to be looking at their end of year data and seeing, how the students, the advanced students in their class did, how the students that were performing on grade level when the year started did, how all the different students in the different subgroups are doing. So super excited about that work. And it's been a fun ride. Not the easiest. A lot of people, assessment sometimes is a bad word in education, but when it's used well and it's used right, it does help you understand how your district is performing with students. And it does help you attend to the needs of students at all levels. The other thing that we really wanted to focus on is our district has character education. It's character.org. Our district also has social emotional learning standards. those standards were put in place, I think back in 15, 16. At the time, the standards were coming out of Kansas, and they've since morphed into the Kessel standards, and they are the adopted social emotional learning standards of the state of Michigan. And we also, the district prior to my arrival had started working in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, hence the inclusion in my title. And so we decided, like, what we really wanted to think about was, like, how do these things line up in the best interest of serving the social and emotional health of our students and our staff? The number one thing we've learned from talking to over 14 different focus groups from our surveys and our conversations is that our students are stressed, our staff are feeling stressed. The number one things our student told us in the survey is that they are feeling stressed. And that stress is one of the major issues they're working with. So we thought about how can we marry those three things so that it's really about the emotional wellness of our students and our staff. And so we worked to redefine our diversity committee into a Better Together committee. And that committee is focused on thinking about, what does this mean in our community, right? Like, what does this mean for us, for our students, and for our teachers? And how do we care for the mental wellness and health of our community so that everybody feels cared for, everybody feels loved, everybody feels prepared to learn? And so that's really what we're thinking about as we approach that work. And so we've started the work of bringing those three different committees together, norming on what each committee is focused on, and building a program called Better Together, which I'll talk about a little later in the presentation. The other goal I had this year was our math curriculum cycle review to recommend and to think about and recommend advanced placement at the elementary level. And I'm going to dig into that a little later. We've made a lot of progress in that space. And then we also, as a community, one thing we've discovered through the strategic planning process is we actually don't have a lot of data on how our students feel. Like, do they feel cared for? Do they feel like they belong? How does our staff feel? Do they feel supported by the district? Do they feel like they have the resources they need, the training they need to serve their students? And so we're going to be selecting and implementing in the fall of next year a culture and climate survey that will be administered at the beginning and end of each year, so that we can measure our progress in the areas of students' perception of school. Do they feel like they're being challenged in school? Do they feel bored in school? So those are kind of the four things that were just kind of laid out when I initially started working here. And we're making good, solid progress in each of those areas. I'd love to pause I'm going to talk more about the math curriculum cycle and the Better Together initiative, but I want to pause for a minute and see if anybody has any questions about these goals, where they came from, or the progress that we're making on them.
You guys can also put questions in the chat too, and one of us can ask them for you. We're kind of monitoring that.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I wanted to say hello because we did have a few more people join us since we started. If you missed the beginning and want to rewatch it, this is going to be posted on our website. Might be there yet tonight, but if not, tomorrow. And that's friends@differentlearners.com. Doesn't look like we have any questions right now.
Wonderful. So I'm going to talk a little bit about core academics, and I'm going to focus on ELA literacy and mathematics in the opposite order: math first and then ELA literacy, primarily because that's where most of the work has been happening this school year. So if you've listened to the board meeting, or if you've attended any of the community events that we've put on You know that our district has reorganized, reimagined our curriculum development process. So it was previously 8 phases. And prior to me joining the team, Dr. Roberson and the curriculum coordinators had worked together to reimagine that process into 4 phases. And then I've continued to build on that work as we move through phases 1 and phases 2 under my leadership. So just quickly, phase 1 is all about forming a leadership committee and doing research to really think about and learn about what are the best practices, both nationally and internationally, in the area with which you're looking. In this case, we were looking at mathematics. Phase 2 is all about looking at what instructional materials are available to help support teachers with delivering instruction in the area that you're looking at. Phase 3 is once you've selected those materials, mapping those materials, developing your curriculum guides and your curriculum maps to ensure that they're sequenced properly so that the students are able to get through all of the required content and hopefully extend their learning beyond that required content. And then phase 4 is all about monitoring the implementation. So it's great to do all this work to put great materials and great courses out there. But once it starts, you have to be honed in on how is the implementation going? Where are we seeing success? Where are we seeing barriers? And when we're seeing barriers to success, what is our plan to address that barrier, to fill in that gap, or to circle back to make sure that we correct that action? So in my work, I monitor curriculum implementations at each phase of our local benchmark assessments, which is beginning year, mid-year, end of year. And then in between, we use observational data. So we have key look-fors that the administrators and the district leaders, our instructional coaches and our teachers are all aware of. And we make our practice public. And we go to classrooms and we learn from one another, and then we get to see where those problems are. I use the 8-step problem solving method. I was trained in that method by Dr. George Bash, who is out of the University of South Florida and a key leader in school improvement and he's a key leader in MTSS and in building the MTSS system. So we'll be using that to make sure that we are cycling back very regularly, looking at all of our implementations. The big news, the big topic this year has been mathematics, and I could not be more excited about how well received the mathematics instructional review process has been. We have 5 things that we want everyone to know about this process. One is that we've been very innovative and transparent. So we took the process from a closed process where a very small group picked a curriculum and then went to a larger group and said, hey, do you agree with this curriculum? And then we piloted one curriculum, and then that curriculum was our curriculum. So we took that and we transformed it into an open bid process, a competitive bid process, which does 2 things. One, it allows our educators to look at everything that is available and make an informed choice, at least based on what is submitted as a part of the competitive bid process. But 2, it also gets you the very best price for those instructional materials. And so we were thinking about both things as we entered the process. Very excited about that innovative outlook. The other thing is we took the decision making away from a small group, and we opened it up to a very large group of our BPS educators. We have about 31 educators on the team. They come from every single school, K-8 in the district, and they come from every grade level in the district. We had representation from special education, from a CI room, from an English language learner, from English language learning, and also high school through our advanced math teachers. So our 8th grade teachers teach the 9th grade advanced math curriculum. We also had a very rigorous evaluation tool. We used resources that were available both locally and nationally, but we designed the tool to be specific to Birmingham. It is educator-led between the leadership team and the core design team. We've had 61 of our K-8 BPS educators participate. I'm going to talk a little bit about stakeholder involvement in a minute. I'll show you the numbers. And we are planning for implementation integrity. We're not just planning to get books. We are planning to make sure that they're implemented with fidelity, and that they're the foundation of core learning. So one thing that I preach all the time, shouldn't use the word preach, but that I get on my soapbox a little bit about this, is the standards are the floor. They are the minimum that our students need to know and be able to do by the end of the year. We should build on that foundation to exceed that minimum where and whenever possible. And the sky is the limit to how much kids can learn when we take good, strong instructional materials that are well aligned and provide a strong foundation, and teachers use their magic, teaching is a science and an art. The science is in building the instructional materials and the standards, and the art is in the way you deliver it and the way you enhance it. And so when the teachers use their magic, you can see great things happening. So we're planning for implementation integrity. I'm going to take a minute. So we have two leaders, Dr. Amber Davis and Sarah Seabor, who are curriculum coordinators on my team. And they are leading the math curriculum review for my department. And they recorded this video that kind of describes the process to you a little bit. So I'm hopeful that you will be able to hear this when I press play. Can you hear it okay?
I'm not hearing anything.
Hold on one second. Is there a special button, Cindy, that I have to push on Zoom to play audio?
You'll have to go in and it says sound when you want to have the sound underneath the let me look for the button here.
I know there's a special button.
Audio settings. It's under the mute. Yeah.
I think I just got it. All right, let's try this again, friends. Hold on one second. Can you still see my screen okay?
We can. It's just, well, it's showing just black right now. It didn't start showing the video earlier. There it is. It's there now.
All right, let's give this a minute and see if it'll play. Ooh. Ah, there it is. I think it's going to play now. I am so sorry. I think I touched a button. Right, I'm not touching anything now.
This is an exciting time in the Birmingham Public Schools as K-8 mathematics is currently under review. This means that we're taking a careful look at student books, assessments, and teacher materials, and considering new materials that might best support the students of Birmingham Public Schools in the area of mathematics.
As a part of this process, our district has formed a math leadership committee, and we started our work together in June of 2021. This group consists of teachers and administrators who are committed to improving mathematics in our district. What we've been doing
April, I think we lost April. She might have went to quiet her dog.
I did.
Oh, okay. I thought you might have. We lost you and we lost the video at the same time.
I was like, I'm gonna go. Oh, hold on, I'll speed it up to catch us back. I am so sorry.
Part of this process, our district has formed a math leadership committee, and we started our work together in June of 2021. This group consists of teachers and administrators who are committed to improving mathematics in our district. What we've been doing as a math leadership committee is we've been looking at research, and we've been analyzing district data, and then also identifying best practices in math across the nation. We want to ensure that our curriculum here in BPS is high quality and most effective for our students and for our school district.
We are now entering the second phase of our process, which means we are forming a mathematics curriculum design team. This team will consist of teachers and administrators from across the district with varying perspectives and experiences. After engaging in shared learning from the math leadership team, the curriculum design team will begin to review potential curriculum resources using a review tool. This tool, which measures alignment to the standards, accessibility, instruction, and assessment, also incorporates the input that has been gathered through our stakeholder surveys and listening circles.
Once the curriculum design team has gathered information about our resources, we will begin the pilot process. That means that some classrooms within the district will use the potential resources. During this time, we will gather data and feedback from students, parents, and teachers. We will use this data to decide which curriculum resource we will implement for grades K through 8 starting in the fall of 2023.
We want you all to be a part of the process every step of the way. Please utilize the BPS Math Curriculum Review website as a space where you can stay updated on our curriculum review process and how you can be involved. The website also has a list of frequently asked questions and more detailed information about our review process. Together, we can ensure that every student in the Birmingham Public School System has a high-quality mathematics education.
So that just gives a little high-level overview of the math process, and also get you to be introduced to Sarah and Amber. I know, Carrie, you had an opportunity. So I'll talk a little bit about this in a minute. But sometimes people ask, like, why are you doing a review and why not? Why now? It seems, we've been asked, it seems like interesting timing, just given everything that's happening in our society and coming out of COVID. But our curriculum is on a cycle, and the math curriculum review for grade K-8 is actually a little delayed because of COVID. And one thing that we know is that as a district, we've been on a little bit of a downward trend when it comes to mathematics in grades K-8. But not significant. Like, I don't want anyone walking away from this feeling like, oh my gosh, we're losing so much ground in mathematics. You can see the numbers, it's a little bit and then a little bit more. And then unfortunately, the pandemic had a greater impact on our school district. In the top graph, this is just our Birmingham. The blue shows Birmingham. In the bottom graph, you can see Birmingham in blue, and you can see our peer districts, which are Troy, Walled Lake, Novi, Rochester, Northville. Districts with like demographics to us are the green line, and then the yellow line at the bottom is all districts in the state of Michigan. And so you can see that somewhere around 2016, we fell a little below our peer districts for the first time in a while, but we trend similar to the state of Michigan, right? So if you look at our line, you look at Michigan, even though we're much higher performing, our trend looks similar. And you can see that our peer districts actually also had a significant decline over the years of COVID. I share this to say that when you see data that looks like this, it's a good indicator that it might be time to look at your instructional materials, your professional learning, because you want to rebound from the pandemic, but you also want to stop the small trend that had started before the pandemic. Does that make sense? Any questions around that? And then I'd like to share, just because this was the last curriculum selection in the district. Some people, I was not here when CPM was implemented, but I feel like I still experienced the trauma of it because I have learned so much about that experience in the district. Same concept. So the blue line is Birmingham. The green line would be our like socioeconomic peers. And the yellow line would be the district. And you will see that in 2017, the district implemented new instructional materials. And you'll see a little bit of the opposite happened. The district fared fairly well through the pandemic and actually is now exceeding the performance of their peers. Similar to, I said, like, don't freak out about the numbers going down a little bit in K-8. I would say the same thing here. It's a slight increase, but over time, it's from 67 to 80. So over time, the average SAT score has increased, a good 11 points across the district in 11th grade mathematics. So when you see data like that, it's an indicator that what you're doing is working, and you begin to look at what is the accelerant. How can you accelerate that progress for students? And when you dig deeper into grade levels, you see varying stories. It's working better in some grade levels and not better in other grade levels. So with some students, not with others. And that's what that cycle, that implementation, and that review process is about, figuring out why it's working here and not working there, and then making some action plans to help accelerate. So this would be an example of a positive response to implementing a new curriculum. The other thing we've done is we really worked hard to make sure that we have all stakeholders involved in this process. So we've had 2,357 engagements. We have engaged with approximately 234 teachers through committees, surveys, listening circles, panel discussions, 23 administrators, 263 parents, and over 1,837 students. So through a variety of surveys, through the instructional materials review, committees, and different things, we've had a significant amount of engagement. And I'm really proud of the quote that is on this slide, because although I live in Oakland County, and like I said, sometimes people forget my career, I have a career beyond Michigan. I am new to Oakland County schools. And so seeing the appreciation that the leaders at Oakland School has for the process that we've put in place. The leaders of mathematics named that the review process is one of the most thorough and thoughtful processes this particular person has seen in their 24-year career, and that they really felt as though we were authentically trying to engage our stakeholders. And so I'm really proud of that, because being a new kid on the block, it feels good to have Oakland schools recognizing and appreciating our work. Another way that we used our stakeholder engagement was we involved stakeholders before we started the review of materials. And we used what we learned from those stakeholders to influence the tool that we use to review the materials. So parents in the community told us they wanted to see real life problem solving. So the tool that we use, the instructional material tool, had a key indicator that problems that are relevant to diverse learners' lived experiences. They told us they wanted to see engagement. So our tool had things that we know engage children, like mathematical discourse, discussions, listening to peers, solutions having different pathways, and defending their ideas are all things that kids like to do and keep them engaged in mathematical discussion. We also heard very clearly that parents want consistent advanced differentiation, advanced learning and differentiation and scaffolding for students that need that additional support. And this is where you will see that we actually veer from a national trend, which is to do away with advanced learning. There's a lot of conversations around access to advanced learning and is it fair and is it equitable? Our community made it very clear to us that that was a priority for our community. And so this was added to our tool and has been a focus of ours as we've been learning and growing, and a commitment that we've made to ensure that there is consistent advanced learning along with differentiation in our district. And we looked at that when we talked about compacted curriculum, which is a way to accelerate students so they're ready for high school math in 9th grade. Or for 9th grade math in 8th grade. And that was in our tool, as well as support for all students. And that would include our English language learners, our students with disabilities, our advanced learners, and our learners that might need a bit more support. The other thing that our community really said was important was fact, practice, and problem solving. They really wanted kids to understand the why behind math, but they also wanted to know that 2 + 2 is 4 pretty fast. And so we made sure in our tool that we had both fluency, efficiency, and accuracy as something we were looking for in new materials. So we wanted to make sure that instead of swinging one way to the pendulum, the way so many people do, that we had a nice balance of why the math works, but also I know how to add, multiply, subtract. I know how to do some things quickly. And so we also heard that people wanted us to look at international models of mathematics. And so we dug deeply into Singapore math and other models from other countries. And we really felt that a lot of the learning was directly tied to our standards of mathematical practice, which is the way that we teach math, maybe thinking about concrete, representational, and abstract, which is just where it goes from, I'm going to use some blocks to I'm going to draw a picture to now I can solve this problem in my head. That's just what those kind of fancy words mean. We also learned a lot about our students. So our students basically one thing we learned that was really interesting is that our students had declining math identities. I don't know why I keep skipping over. And what that means is they start in kindergarten, they think, oh, I love math. I'm really good at math. And as they go through each grade, they slowly but surely over time in the survey showed that they really stop liking math and stop feeling like they're good at math. So we made sure that we looked at how the tools might help students with their math identities. And we also learned that students do not like division and fractions, and they would really like us to remove division and fractions from the standards, which of course we are not able to do, but it was funny to read. And the students also found math boring. So again, like their parents, we wanted to make sure that we include an engagement. So we use the information we gathered in advance to modify our tool to be designed specifically for Birmingham Public Schools. The other thing we did that was really unique is when the materials, so the tool eliminates materials along the way. And when the instructional materials got down to the top 6 resources, we went on the road. So we went to Derby, we went to Berkshire, and we took it to the students of BCS. We got feedback from students at all 3 schools, middle school students. We learned some really interesting things from the middle school students. Unbeknownst to us, they really care about how the paper smells. And then all of a sudden we're all smelling the books because there was one that they said they did not like the smell of. But we also got a lot of really good informative information, like they appreciated having space to write on the page. They liked having an example to go back to. They cared about whether or not the pages were going to rip when they were erasing and trying a different way. It was really one of the best experiences from this was learning from the students and watching them really care about what they were looking at. And we also opened it up to parents in the community. We did not have the participation we hoped for, but we think as the materials get out into the buildings, we'll have more. We had about 26 families come out with their husbands and their children and actually open the books, look at the books, go through the books, and give us their feedback on it. And I think that is the first time that has ever been done in the district as a part of a curriculum materials adoption. And I'll say one more thing, which is there really is no quick fix. No matter how good the instructional materials are, the real work begins with the implementation. And so we really are thinking about, I don't know why this keeps doing this. We really are thinking about professional learning. I'm going to come out of this real quick and put it here just so it stops jumping. So we have planned initial professional learning for our pilot teachers. We have planned coaching that will be embedded within the schools. We have planned job embedded PD where we will have teacher labs where teachers will come to each other's classroom and learn from one another. We have leadership professional learning planned, and we also, and I think this might be one of the first, we have opportunities for families to come out and not only learn about the math materials, but also throughout the instruction, learn about how to teach, how to help their students with the math. We had the pleasure of taking our 2 materials for pilot to the district curriculum council. And what's really exciting is our district review committee came to 100% consensus on the 2 materials that we're going to be bringing forth to the board on May 24th. They came to 100% consensus, which is really hard to do when you're talking about 32 educators from all over the district from all grades. But our district curriculum council also unanimously voted to move forward and agreed that our process was rigorous, that it was transparent, that we engaged stakeholders, and that we were bringing forth instructional materials that were worthy of our students. So we're really proud of that. Carrie, I know you're on the district curriculum council. I don't know if you want to say, we can't say the materials yet because the board hasn't approved them yet, but if you would want to talk about what you just saw and learned, I'd love to let you talk for a minute.
I was very impressed with the level of thoughtfulness throughout what you guys put in, where you grabbed the information. Oh, I shouldn't say grab the information, but how actively you keep. I was just thoroughly impressed. I've seen a district review, like our district review curriculum in the past or the materials in the past, and it's maybe not even a 16th of what I saw in what you're doing and reaching into the community, and the thoughtfulness of how the depth and the breadth of what you're actually building. And you're in addition building in that scaffolding for the MTSS. It's just profound. I think you're doing a great job, and working with all the teachers and making sure that there's solid resources for them to be able to support teachers, support themselves, support the students, and support parents. And you guys are continually growing and watching for within these models, continually watching for how things transpire before actually making any particular decision one way or the other. So I think you and your team have done an outstanding job.
Thank you. It has been a huge labor of love, and we're really looking forward to the pilot because that'll help us decide which resource emerges to the top. And the district curriculum council actually got to see the full evaluation tool. So they were able to look at all the pages and analyze exactly what we did look for, because it was and is customized to Birmingham. So we're looking forward to making that available once we have bring it to the board. So look forward to learning a little bit more about that in the future. In the area of literacy, I know this slide looks far less dynamic, but don't let it fool you. Cindy, who is on our call, and I have been very hard at work because literacy is up next. So we start with phase 1 next year with literacy. So we'll be forming, we have a district literacy team, but we'll be adding to that and growing that. In advance of that, we've been doing some real hard work in thinking about literacy in our district. So we have 40 educators in our district taking advantage of the LETRS Science of Reading professional learning. It's being offered for free by the Michigan Department of Education, which is amazing because it's an extraordinarily expensive professional learning. And just a little personal story. I feel like I have lived the 3rd grade reading law 3 times over. Because I was a 1st grade teacher when Florida passed the 3rd grade reading law like 15 years ago. And my principal decided, because I was really good at teaching children how to read, I should go to 3rd grade because they were very afraid of the mandatory retention side of the 3rd grade reading law. And so when I went and taught 3rd grade for the first time in my life, I realized I was really good at teaching children how to decode words. I was not necessarily really good at teaching them how to comprehend what they were reading. And I had 5 students score a level 1 on the state test in Florida, which at that time was called the FCAT. And I was devastated because it meant they would be retained, and none of those students should be retained. And so I was given the opportunity to teach at summer camp, and students could come out of summer camp in Florida, take a test and be promoted. And I really was going to make sure that these students were promoted. And so between the time that we got the scores back and the time that I taught summer camp, I went through the LETRS course. I went through it in person. And it is where I actually learned how to teach children how to read. So when the Michigan Department of Education made it available, and I will say after that, I taught 3rd grade for 4 more years, and I did not have a single level 1, which is the lowest level in Florida, and I only had 1 level 2. Because I learned how to teach kids to read. And that's ultimately how I started working my way up, as those scores were noticed. And then I was moved into a coach, and then my school started improving. And that's how I was invited to come work at the Department of Education. Another thing that I know Cindy worked on before I arrived was putting a foundational skills program in place. So we did add to grades K2 foundational skills program, and that has been going pretty well this year. The teachers are working to implement that skills program with integrity, and it's something that was really missing in our core curriculum. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that. We also have trained is it all of our reading specialists now? Cindy, we've trained
all reading specialists, and we have 11 LRC teachers that are also trained in Orton Gillingham.
So our reading and our special education educators have been trained in Orton Gillingham, and they have received follow-up coaching. So we contracted with IMSE to come in and do some coaching to support the teachers and how Orton Gillingham is. It sounds lovely because it's a multi-sensory approach to teaching the foundational skills, but you have to do it with fidelity for it to have the impact that it was having. And so we also have provided on-site coaching days for our trained teachers. We have started the introduction of close reading, which is teaching kids how to dissect a complex grade level text. Cindy has done some teaching labs, which are job embedded professional learning with our teachers. BCS, was it at BCS in Corton? Which 2 schools were you at, Cindy, that you were doing the close reading?
I was at Corton and Bingham Farms.
Corton and Bingham Farms, and we're going to extend that out. Forgive me, we have been working on intervention integrity. And so one thing we've learned is that while doing interventions, we may not be following the precise prescription that the research is based on that says that intervention works for that profile of student, right? And so we've been working really hard to help our teachers think about what an intervention should look like. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because I'm going to go into MTSS. So one of my big goals is to start the 22-23 school year with an MTSS system in place for K-5 literacy. Right now, our MTSS systems are school-based, so each school does it a little differently. And so we are preparing to launch a district-wide MTSS system we're starting with K-5 literacy. And as a part of that work, we've been evaluating our current interventions and systems. A big part of MTSS is not just doing the intervention, but tracking the intervention and progress monitoring to see the impact it's having on the student. We've been determining which interventions are we using that are research-based and which interventions are we using maybe because we just love them. We've been doing them for a long time. We've been thinking about what is the purpose of this intervention. If this student needs foundational skills, is this intervention the right intervention for them? Or if this student has shown mastery of how to decode words, is Orton Gillingham really the right intervention for them? So helping to think about what's the purpose of the intervention and then requiring the proper dosage. So research shows us that for intervention to be effective, it does need to be a minimum of 3 days a week, 30 minutes at least. But many interventions have a prescribed dosage that their research of the effect of the intervention are built upon. And so we've been digging into what is dosage and what are the dosages that are required of the interventions we're using. And then what is the difference between progress monitoring and just monitoring? Like, how are we progress monitoring our interventions to see if this intervention is actually having an impact on student achievement? And we've been doing all that in preparation for, this is just a little, I'm going to try to go back to this so you can see this a little better. This is just an example of what we've started doing, which is putting together like, what is our intervention? What is our intervention? The description that describes what the intervention is and the right students it's for. What is its clearinghouse rating, which is just a national clearinghouse that rates the effectiveness of interventions. What it addresses: alphabetics, reading achievement, reading fluency. So, you know, if the student has a fluency problem, this might be a good intervention for them. And then what is the proper dosage? And so our goal was to have this for both reading and math as we build out our district-wide intervention system. This is just an example of that. So before I go on to college and career readiness, do we have any questions around math, reading, or MTSS?
There was one question in the chat. So Catherine asked, will all LRC teachers be going through the Orton Gillingham training? I think you indicated 11 have had it so far.
Yeah, it is our goal to have all LRC teachers that work with students that have reading goals that would be appropriate for Orton Gillingham to be trained. Yes. And we're going to continue to train year over year. So that is our goal.
April, I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I swear one day I'm going to figure all this out, but can you remind me what MTSS stands
absolutely.
for?
Yes, it's just a multi-tiered system of supports. And so MTSS is the umbrella term for academic interventions and behavior interventions. So
okay.
MTSS used to be called RTI for the academic side of it and PBS for the behavior side of it, but MTSS is just kind of the umbrella for both.
Okay, thanks so much.
We really like our acronyms.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not even listening to the past ones because
we're really good at those.
April, do you want to clarify like when they're used? Because I think that might be very helpful for people, whether here or not here.
When so the interventions are delivered? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one rule is that students cannot miss core instruction in order to receive intervention. Because that just compounds the problem. So I'm struggling to read on grade level, and now I'm missing my grade level intervention, my grade level instruction to go to intervention that's supposed to be helping me feel, so my gap just keeps growing. So the interventions are used outside of the core reading block or during small group time in the reading block. So when the teacher might be pulling small groups and the students might be out working on student-led activities or partner or independent activities. They could also be pulled at other non-core academic time. So most of these interventions we're talking about are tier 3 interventions. So MTSS has tier 1, which is your core instruction, what you're learning, grade level standards. Tier 2, which is typically done in the classroom by the classroom teacher. It might be an extension of the core lesson where you dig in and give a little bit more scaffolding and support to students so that they have a better opportunity of being successful at core instruction. And then tier 3 is the most intensive intervention. And a lot of times that is a pull out or a push in intervention where a reading specialist or someone with a specific expertise works with students. Most usually kids receive intervention during that small group time within the literacy block, but they could be pulled at different times throughout the day, but not from any of their core academic areas.
And I just wanted to add also that obviously the math cycle has already started, and then you noted literacy is going to start next year, but it wasn't supposed to start next year. So that is something that you and your group have moved up out of need, I would say. So
we did, yes. And I'm a little nervous about it, if I'm honest, and I'm going to play it by ear. One thing I am is fluid, right? Like I want to make sure that I'm listening and responding. The only reason I'm a little nervous is because our elementary teachers teach all subject areas. So learning a new math curriculum and then turning around and learning a new literacy curriculum might be a little challenge. So we might do an implementation a little different with literacy. We're going to pay attention and listen and see how the math curriculum goes, and then move into thinking about the literacy curriculum. But right now the plan is that next year would be the research. The following year would be the year that we select the materials, and they would go into place in 24-25.
Yeah, I was gonna say, these are like 3-year processes
Yeah.
as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. We did move it up quite a bit. We were still a little ways away, but we moved it up. Any other questions about that before I talk real quick about career technical education and career readiness? This is something that I'm super excited about. We have 2 amazing leaders. So Caitlin Billups is our curriculum coordinator of assessment in college career readiness. And then Amy is our district level department head. So she's a school-based position. And she's working with our CTE teachers, our career technical education teachers. And she's also working K-12 in career readiness. So something that we heard loud and clear in our focus groups was our community wanted us to have a stronger focus on career readiness and preparing children to think about what their career might look like, and to take courses and classes that help them explore those careers, and also help them think about what college they might attend, what college might have the best program in that area, and that they want kids to have the life skills to be able to make it in college and feel ready for the challenges that they face. I don't know, that almost all of us face when we leave home and go away to school. And so we have a 3-year plan for college and career readiness that will go into place starting next year. So this is a space where we did listen and learn in order to build a plan for the following year. So one thing we want to do is improve the quality and visibility of our CTE programs that we have right now. We want to grow enrollment. We want to increase community awareness. We want to build our partnership, and we really want to rebrand our program. We want to reimagine the program by adding an education and training program. So a teacher cadet program is going to be added to our CTE offerings. We want to refine our current course offering, and by refine, we really mean we want to bring them up to date. We want to make them innovative, and cutting edge CTE programs. Some things we're talking about are cybersecurity, coding, computer science, things that our students are interested in exploring further in college, or that you can get some industry certifications and walk out of high school and get an excellent job if that's a choice you want to make. And then we want to empower our CTE teachers by we're really going to work to develop internships and externships for our students with our businesses in Birmingham and around Birmingham in our community. So students that are interested in marketing might intern at a marketing company in our area. Students that are interested in engineering might be connected with one of our auto workers that are in the area. So we have a goal of having, right now we have 6 internships as a district, and we have a goal of having 55 at the end of the 3 years across all of our programs in career technical education. We plan to do this in 3 phases. So phase 1 is going to be rebranding the program. So kids want to go, kids want to take the CTE courses, not go, they're in their schools, but so they want to take those courses. We're going to work to refine and enhance the program, update the technology, update the curriculum resources. We want to start working on preparing to add our teacher college program the following year. And we want to enhance work-based learning internships. In phase 2, we're going to upgrade our facilities, establish a post-secondary pipeline. So we want to increase the opportunities for dual enrollment and for early college, which is where you actually graduate from high school with an associate's degree. And we want to utilize Oakland Schools Technical Center. There's a lot of kids in our district, and we heard in the focus groups that our families want us to take the stigma off that. And if that's the right career path for the right student, let's use that campus and work in partnership with them. And then we'll be doing a program evaluation to ensure what we've done to improve and enhance the program, including enrollment, is sustainable over time. And we'll start exploring additional programs to add. So right now we have marketing, engineering, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're leaving my mind. Marketing, engineering, technology, all of we have a store at Seahome, we have a store at Groves that are run by the CTE programs. Catherine, what's leaving my brain? It's marketing, engineering, technology,
accounting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know we have 6 programs altogether. So they're very exciting programs. The kids that are in them love them and learn so much. I know you work at Seahome, so I'm expertise. Any questions about career technical education or career readiness?
There was one in the chat. Oh, someone in the chat says robotics. Was that one of the programs?
Yes, robotics is one of the programs.
Yep. There was a question in the chat that I think I just missed before you moved on about the math. And that was, when would the new math curriculum be implemented, and were the finalist vendors announced yet?
So the final vendors have not been announced yet. They will be going to the board at our May 24th meeting. So that is where we will be seeking board approval. Our district curriculum council also is aware of the final because we had to seek their approval. But they will be announced very soon. We're looking forward to that. And what was the question before that?
That was the only question. The other comment was from Bob, and he was saying the robotics piece.
Oh, yes, it is robotics. Yeah. Thank you, friends. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Better Together. And I enter this conversation cautiously because I believe it's important to acknowledge that, you know, we're in a time and space where, you know, it's a bit of a politically charged environment. And you want to be thoughtful and cautious as you're thinking about the social emotional wellness. And there are some words that can be triggering to either side. So I'm going to do my very best to work through our Better Together initiative. honestly and transparently, so that our community knows who we are, what we're about, and what we're trying to accomplish. So Better Together is really about our staff and student wellness. It's a way forward for our school district as we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. I know a lot of people think it's over, but the impact that it has had on student learning, on student behavior, on social skills for students, and on their health and wellness from feeling isolated. This is the first time in this generation that we have had children that have experienced an entire year of learning almost virtually and in their home, not doing sports, not interacting with their friends. And so the impact of that is still very present. At the District Curriculum Council for Mathematics, we had students there, and one of the students from C-Home was sharing with me that that she's in, her mom is a teacher of pre-calc and she's in pre-calc. And one thing that they are seeing is there are these holes in the students' knowledge that have never been there before, that they haven't. And even this young lady who is an excelling scholar experienced that. And it is just the transition to virtual learning and the learning that was lost during that. But also, I think the capacity and ability to interact in a classroom in the way that we were before the pandemic has just changed dramatically. And so this idea has really emerged from, our community is asking us to care for the social emotional health of our staff and students. They're asking us to create a learning environment that is safe and loving, where all staff and all children feel like they belong. And that is truly what we are hoping to accomplish, is just to recognize that when we all come together and we work together in the best interest of students' academics, we are just better when we are together. And so at the end of 3 years, we're working on a plan. And at the end of 3 years, we really hope that our district can celebrate the beauty and joy of the diversity in our district and community, which I think we do quite well already. So I think that's going to be an easy goal to accomplish. It's beautiful to see our staff and students recognizing various differences that live within our community, from autism awareness to Latin American Week to Women's History to, it's just beautiful to see all the different celebrations and conversations happening around the district. I don't know if you've seen the amazing mural that the students at Groves made to celebrate African American history, but it's just beautiful and amazing. So we want to develop district staff to lead and sustain learning community that fosters belonging and attends to the staff and students' social, emotional, and mental health. So how can we talk with one another? How can we support one another? How can we have kind and civil discourse with one another? And how can we center what we're doing in what is best for all students, so that I say it all the time, Birmingham will be the #1 school district in the state of Michigan, and then we're going to go after #1 in the United States. There's no reason we couldn't with the brilliant teachers and students we have here. We're also going to work really hard to continuously engage the community so that they understand the initiative, so there isn't a misconception about what we are and are not doing. So if you want to know, just come to an event and come see. If you feel suspect, or if you feel excited, come and find out, and let's work through this together, so that we are actually serving the needs of our community. And then we want to make sure that we respond to unkind behaviors. I named that the equity audit is about a lot. And one thing we learned is 36% of our middle school students are reporting that they are experiencing bullying. And I will tell you that in the focus group with the middle school students, Cindy and I were both on that focus group. They talked about being fat shamed, being made fun of, for various physical features. We really want to go after helping to just respond to unkind behaviors in a timely way, to put student safety first, and to honor the dignity of those individuals that are harmed and restore relationships. So kids are kids, they make mistakes. So we want to make sure that we don't shame students that have made a mistake, because shame is the most toxic emotion that a human can feel, but that we help restore relationships, because that is a life skill that will follow you for life, you know? And so we're really working hard to create, you know, an atmosphere that is kind, and that all children feel like they belong, and that we can support each other when we're going through things together. There's a couple of things we're going to be doing. We're going to develop and implement a school improvement planning process that addresses the needs of all learners. So we're going to be working together as a district, not a, we need to be a district of schools, not a school of districts or something like that. And we need to be one district with multiple schools in it. And we want to make sure that while we develop strategic plan goals, that they're flexible to each unique learning community. So there is this uniform foundation. We heard across all that, like, people are unhappy that there are some opportunities at one school that are not available at another school. So we want to make sure that there is a foundation that is there at all schools, but schools still have the opportunity to be their own unique community. Greenfield is Greenfield. You know, it should be able to keep its unique feel. Corton is Corton. It should be able to keep its unique feel, but both should be able to offer advanced mathematics, and both should be able to offer support and scaffolding for students that need it, you know? And so right now the district when I joined the district, there was the DEI committee, the character, the social emotional learning. So we're working to have those things work in congruence together in order to focus on building, you know, a kind community. We want to leverage the Better Together Steering Committee to keep our community well engaged and informed, so that we're doing these things together. And we want to develop and implement a sustainable 3-year professional learning plans for leaders and teachers, so that we're all on the same page when it comes to our community and how we want to treat one another within our learning community. And that is it for Better Together. Any questions about that? I'd love to talk through anything. Anything in the chat?
Nothing else in the chat right now. If anyone wants to put questions in the chat, we'll read them for you, or you can unmute yourself as well and ask your question.
I also want to make you aware that we are, I've been working to update, I haven't made it through all the pages yet, but we are working to update the curriculum and instruction and character education learning pages on our website. So if you want to know about the math review, there's a whole page dedicated to that. There is a page dedicated to the work that we're doing in Better Together that takes you to the resources around what the history is, what has happened, and what the direction that we're going in. It links to those resources because we don't want to keep anything hidden. We want everyone to know exactly what we're doing and why. And so please visit the website. Also, under the district tab, if you click on the strategic plan, I have been writing a blog throughout the strategic planning process called The Unknown Stories of Strategic Planning. And so please feel free to go learn all about our strategic plan. The engagement that has taken place with the strategic plan is even more impressive than our K-8 math review. It has been truly an amazing experience. So if you click on that same district tab that you see in white up there, the strategic plan webpage is there as well. And you have to go over to departments to get to curriculum and instruction and character education. So don't hesitate to check us out on the website at any time. And so that's what we're up to. It's a lot.
Okay. Thank you, April. That was a lot of information and a lot of things that you are doing. So that I'm glad that you were able to highlight a little bit on each of those. If you guys have more questions for April, her contact information is on the BPS website, of course. And then I know a lot of people are passionate about what's going on with the math. So that it sounds like the end of May, I forget what date you said, the 24th.
I think it's the 24th, yeah.
Board meeting will be the one to find out more about what programs are going to go to the next step. Okay. Anybody else have, I'll give one other minute here if anyone wanted to unmute themselves and ask any additional questions. Otherwise, we are a little over on our time, so I think we are going to conclude our meeting tonight. Again, the whole recording of this will be on our website, friendsofdifferentlearners.com, and you can find our schedule of meetings and information to contact us if you have ideas for future meetings there as well. So April, thank you so much. That was a ton of information. I don't know how you got your dog to be quiet for us, but we appreciate that we could hear you clearly for most of the meeting. And we'll be seeing you around the community.
Hilarious enough, my neighbor decided that it was the right time to put up his hot tub, and that's what she was barking at.
Oh.
So I opened the door and let her go outside and bark at him.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks for spending your evening with us. Good night.